Hey, how's it going, everyone? Justin again, as always. Thanks for watching my channel. Welcome back. 2000 Mercury Sable, my daughter's first car. Maybe, okay? Dad might have picked the wrong car. It's not very new. It's not very stylish, you know. But you know what? It is a first car. Kids usually wreck their first car. I know. I was a teen once. I wrecked my first car. It happens. It might not be the vehicle that she wants, but it's definitely a vehicle that she needs. Whether she decides to go with it or not is going to be entirely up to her, but that's okay, because if she doesn't like it or doesn't want it, once we get done fixing it, I'll probably sell it to my sister-in-law or possibly my manager's niece, who's also turning 16 and needs her first car. So we're still going to continue fixing it up. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Today we're pulling off the intake. We're taking out the spark plugs. We're going to go ahead and gap the plugs. We're going to replace the gaskets. We're going to replace the fuel injector O-rings. Then we're going to fire it up and see what it sounds like. Let's get rolling. 2000 Mercury Sable 3-liter spark plug gap. This is a dual overhead cam. Okay, dual overhead cam, 52 thousandths. 52 to 56 thousandths. Okay. Dual overhead cam, 52 to 56 thousandths. Perfect. Ugh. Hope that boot's not stuck in there. All right, so we got a coil boot stuck down in the chamber. We do not want to rip this on accident. I'm going to try to get up underneath it with these spark plug boot pullers. See if I can't twist and break it free. Come on, baby. There we go. All right, cool. Just another reason why I love having these things. I'll make sure to find the Amazon affiliate link for you guys and put it down below if you're looking for something like this, because these stuck boots happen not just to coils, but also to plugs that are on the side of the block. And these things come in handy, man. You're really going to want a set of those, or at least put them on a wish list. All right, that being said, something else I'm also going to throw down there for you is a spark plug gap checker. Now, I like this one. It's kind of like a pin style. We're going to go ahead and use that to set our gap. Let's go ahead and remove the plugs and get them changed out. Now, as you can see, they're old. They're old and due. Perfect. So it said between 52 and 56 thousandths, and we are at 52 thousandths. So the reason why you want to check the spark gap is because that could change the rate of fire, could cause a misfire. But even more importantly is that these things oftentimes will get dropped off a shelf. You know, sometimes parts delivery personnel are not too incredibly careful. They might toss them in the box or in the seat or what have you, and if they drop it, it could change the gap as well. And if you just take them straight out of the box and plug them right on in, you might have a problem that you didn't have before. So that's why it's always important to check gap. Now, if you have iridiums, which have a sharp little point, which are like these right here, you don't have to worry about all that. But these ones don't. So these are the ones we're putting in. I like to thread this in by hand first, make sure I got it started. A lot of people are going to tell me this is a huge no-no. It's just what I do, okay? And then I just give it a little towards the end, okay? I thread it in by hand first. I slowly run it down, and then I give it a little, All right, something else that you can do, again, you don't have to, but a lot of mechanics actually do this. So you can use Vaseline if you don't have this stuff. This stuff is made by PST. It's 511. It's basically, this is just for It's petroleum, okay? It's a little bit of petroleum lubricant. You just take a little bit, you give it a little wipe there on the inside, maybe rub it around there with your pinky a little bit, put some on the outer edge. All this really does for me, in my opinion, is it helps to where it's lubricated on top so that the next time I have to go and pull and remove it, I'm not sitting there struggling and then having to use those special spark plug boot pliers that we saw, okay? That's the reason why me, myself, and probably a lot of other mechanics use a little bit of petroleum. Like I said, you can use Vaseline too. Vaseline's fine. Do not be using like anti-seize or brake caliper grease. I wouldn't use brake caliper grease. If you don't have this stuff, just get you some Vaseline, okay? Just a little lube, a little bit of love, okay? You rub it on there. All it does is make it to where this coil's not gonna, like I said, be permanently stuck to it. You do it on plug wires too. It's just a thing. You don't have to, but if you want to, and you own the car, it's beneficial for the next time, right? All right, now we can go ahead and start pulling off our intake. That part just came right on off. It's a PCV system. All right, flat rate trick time. So here's the deal. I could reach up underneath, no big deal, right? I'm already gonna have it tilted over anyways. Take off 2 more hoses, okay? But all I really wanna do is get over to the plugs, which we have full access to, and take the lower off, maybe even change out the O-rings to the fuel injectors. So let me show you something. That's why I love having these things around. So what you do is, you hook it onto something, make sure you got yourself another wiggle room. Ammo, just like that. The upper is now out of my way, and I've got full access to the rear plugs, as well as my lower. I can look at injectors, I can look at everything that's going on from right here, without having to fully remove this thing. I can even take out the old gaskets from the upper. So I'm gonna get our gaskets. We're gonna go ahead and disconnect our fuel injector harness, lift the lower up, replace the gaskets, put it down, and then we're gonna tackle these plugs. All right, so we'll start off by just removing the upper plenum gaskets. Like so. We got a couple here that are attached to the lower already. Throw those out of the way. I'll go ahead and open up our new set. Our fuel injector O-rings and our EGR gaskets, we'll set those over there. We'll get all the ones that are round now, and we'll put them in place, like so. Okay, so same exact idea, same exact concept. If I did not want to change out any of the fuel injectors, we could. We could remove the entire lower intake. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it this way to show you guys. Okay, and with those 8 bolts removed, This whole thing should just lift right on up. And then we only need a little tilt. I don't know if it's going to give it to us. Here we go. It's just a hard harness. Look at those gaskets though. These things are pancake flat. In case you guys were wondering what it was that I did to diagnose the intake gaskets being bad, if you saw last video, all I did was take a water sprayer with some soapy water and sprayed it on and around the intake until I saw it kind of guzzling and suckling in, okay? You guys should follow a torque spec. I'm okay with going by wrist click torque because I've been doing it long enough to where I feel comfortable enough. Also, this is my car. On a customer's car, especially with new intakes, especially with the Triton, there are certain cars that I will most certainly 100% go look up the torque spec and torque in a specific order, because if you don't, you'll have problems. And that's how I know what cars I can do it to and get away with and which ones I cannot. So even me, I still torque things down. Might not be today, but I do. Right now I'm just running these in because the EGR gaskets are relatively tight. I run the bolts in first to kind of get my thread started so I don't have to worry about losing the gasket or anything. So now I'll just kind of set it in, kind of drop it in place, line it up a little bit, and then we'll send it. We're not going to run it for too long because I'm not opening a bay door. Just long enough to hear if it made a difference. Found it. It's alive! Well, it works. Thank you. That's what everybody does on the road. So, you know, we just sold the trailer in a couple of And I'll say this, man, I love my shop owner. Always willing to help out. Of course, I'm always willing to help him out too. But we were able to go ahead and take care of the vacuum leak, and now we're on a road test. Oh yeah, we got some side-to-side action here in the front. Brakes seem to be all right. That's a lot of shake in the front end. All right, so currently 98,550 miles. We have to adjust the brakes. We're probably gonna have to turn the rotors, but you can see the steering wheel shakes. The car detail guy did a great job. Power seats, power windows, power locks, power mirrors. The back seat looks really good now. Had a lot of coffee stains on it. And plenty of room here in the back. All right, sorry for the poor lighting. It's the end of the day. I'm gonna try to get out of here as soon as I can, but change of plan. My daughter, she lives way back east. I don't think she's 100% satisfied with the first vehicle of choice that I decided to pick up for her. Thought it would be a good car. So the game plan now is to basically find something that she does want. We're gonna turn the rotors now for the Mercury Sable. We're going to grease the slide pins. I want to show you guys a couple of things with this rotor. So you got a measuring tool like this. This one is a rotor micrometer, an outside micrometer, but specifically for disc rotors. The tip is so that way if there's any kind of heavy grooves, you can actually settle that into a groove to find out what the overall thickness of the rotor is, like so. So for instance, this one is 1.004 of an inch. So we would go back to our specification, or if you're on O'Reilly's website, you're getting ready to buy rotors, it'll actually tell you what the min-max spec is below their parts list for the rotors. We have plenty of meat on this. The brakes pulsate and it shakes the steering wheel when you're driving. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna clean that up. We're gonna scuff the pads. We're gonna grease the slide pins and put her all back together. This way, my wife's sister has sufficient stopping power. That is correct. What started off as a vehicle for my teen daughter is now gonna be a vehicle that I'm gifting to my sister-in-law, so that way she has a vehicle, a way of some form of transportation. She's been without transportation now for probably the betterment of about a year, year and a half, and it's been difficult for her to find a full-time job that she can get to and from because the stuff that's near her, let's just say it's few and far between, and to get a better job she'd have to have some way of being able to get to and from outside of walking or relying on others for a ride. My teen daughter wasn't too enthusiastic about the wagon to begin with, but that's okay. I understand. I was a teen myself at one point. It's not newish, and there's not that specific style or a little bit of sexiness to it. I suppose it depends on what you find sexy in a car. But at any rate, I understand. We're gonna try to see if we can't find something a little bit geared more towards a young teen. I thought I had the right idea going into it. I think my heart was in the right location. Just maybe not the world's greatest pick. Way to go, Dad, right? But no, look, I get it. You know, it's free, it's free. She shouldn't be complaining. Nothing says that she was complaining. I just know there's other vehicles out there that she would probably favor more than a wagon. There was some other vehicles that I had showed her in the past that I think she favored a little bit more that just didn't work out. So I caught the vibe, okay? Daddy gets it. Anyway, we're turning rotors. Enough of my jibba jabba. Let's do this. All right, so you're gonna fire the machine up. You're gonna wanna run in the cutting blades. And all we're gonna do here, this is machining the rotor. So if you ever wanted to know what they're doing when they cut the rotors, we're just gonna run the tip in until we scratch the surface. Like so. Not trying to go crazy, just let it scratch. Once you've established the scratch pattern, we can tighten down our deals that hold the blades in place so they're not moving in and out. Then I like to run it out. Gotta be careful. There's a big lip there, and that's rust. We want to make sure we take that off before we go cutting it, or it may end up stopping. See, I can turn my hand slower than the machine will. This is going to help us to get rid of that lip on the outer edge, and we can do that to the inside edge too. This machine is cutting. This machine is flinging metal. You should wear safety glasses. Mine, I don't have. You should wear them. Good enough. All right, now we're locked in, right? We're gonna turn the dial to 0 on both. You don't have to, okay? Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just remember I keep track, okay? I count 2 lines, and I turn them 2 at a time until eventually we have a smooth surface. But if you want to know how much you took off, okay, spin the dial. So we unlock. 1, 2. 1, 2. You can hear it engage more. Maybe on this one we'll go 3. 3. Now we're gonna hit the go button. Give that a pull. We're gonna let it do its thing. I'll show you guys a little up close shot so you can see what it looks like. because we have to make another cut on that rotor and it's going to take another minute. I'm just going to go ahead and show you two other styles of calipers that you can use. So the first one that we used is an outside rotor micrometer. This next one is a veneer caliper, and this one's digital. They also have analog veneer calipers. The only real issue here, and it's not even that big of an issue, I suppose, because the two ends here are perfectly flat, or as flat as they could possibly be. You can zero it out, and you can at least get a rough idea of what the thickness is. This one's a Harbor Freight Special, okay? Works just fine. And we're talking a minute difference between this and what that little needle can pick up on the outside dial micrometer, okay? So the veneer caliper works great. You can use an analog or digital, doesn't matter, your choice. There's another style of veneer caliper, and this one is specifically for rotors with, again, the grooves. So if you wanted to get into one of those grooves, this one is a digital veneer rotor caliper. And again, it has that tip, just like the analog style outside micrometer that I have, that you can use to get into that deep groove, get a firm measurement, and then that way you get a more accurate reading. This one is from Matco Tools. This is Shane's. We use it quite a bit here at the shop. All right, let's get into one more other little detail for a minute. One of the issues that I have run into a couple of times, not all the times, is sometimes this is a little too wide to get in between the backing plate and the rotor, and there's no nice spot really to put it without taking off the caliper to get a measurement. Something like this one that Shane has, you can see is substantially thinner. That's why we end up grabbing his a lot. And again, even something like this can be beneficial if you don't have the other style that Shane has. And between my Pittsburgh veneer caliper and Shane's, one of the biggest differences that I've seen or noticed, okay, is that it's not deep enough or long enough to get into that rotor sweet spot wherever it was digging in. So this one's actually pretty slick. The Matco tool number is DRG04B. This one, again, Harbor Freight Special. This one's made by Fowler. If I can find either one of these or a close resemblance to either one of these on Amazon, I'll make sure to put the affiliate link down below for you if you're interested. Of all three, I prefer Shane's, the digital veneer rotor caliper. That's the one I prefer. I think the whole shop does. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna grease the sliding pins on the mounting bracket. Real easy, you pull that out, clean it up. Now, if these things are covered in rust, you're gonna get what feels like a seized caliper. Might feel kind of grabby. And not only that, but it's gonna prematurely wear the pads out too, and you don't want that. Let me toss a picture down here in the corner. So a customer come in, they had a Ford, it was an F-150, okay? And they wanted to have their brakes looked at because they were getting some grinding sound, but they had just had their brakes done within the last like month or two, okay? So we're taking a look. I was like, yeah, sure enough, the outer pad was at 0 and it was already grinding into their brand new rotors, right? So that was interesting. Well, after further investigation, meaning taking it apart, I was thinking in the beginning, like anyone else, well, this side is completely metal to metal on the outside pad, and inside was worn down pretty good. But on the other side still had about 10 millimeter, right? That's what you would kind of expect. So we take it apart, I pulled the sliding pins out, and sure enough, one of the pins, one of them had grease, much like the grease that little bit of grease that we had. The other one did not. So there's the picture down there. Completely rusted, dusted, and coated so bad that that one pin was locked in place, could not travel with the other one. So one was pushing in, so the top part might have looked like it had pad, but the other part wasn't doing anything, and it grounded it all the way down because it was trying to compensate for where the bottom one wasn't engaging. So as that caliper's going, as the hydraulic fluid is coming down, right, it's pushing the rotor together, smushing it down. One of them's moving in, the other one's not. So, you know, long story short, make sure you grease the sliding pins. Don't forget about that. Some technicians or mechanics will even go the extra mile, and they might even put a little bit of the silicone grease on the back of here. It's supposed to help keep down any kind of possible chatter from the backing plate. I haven't had anything like that. If I have chatter or anything like that, it's coming from a backing plate that is touching or scoring the rotor, or it's hardware, because there's hardware on some of these mounting brackets, not this one, but there's metal hardware that comes in here, and sometimes if they're put on backwards or they get worn out, they might fold themselves into the rotor, causing a scratching sound, right? And if you get that hard grinding sound, then you know that you've reached pretty much the backing plate of your pad. Now, just because your backing plate has 4 millimeter of metal doesn't mean that you still have 4 millimeter left, all right? Look, so there, you got some pad, there's your pad, there's the backing plate. I have seen customers come in, they said, I can still see the pad. And they went until the piston went through the backing plate into the rotor, and that was a very bad day for them. So don't do that, okay? Get your pads checked when you get your oil change done, see where they're at. We kind of go by this millimeter percentage kind of a rule. So if it's like 5 millimeter, we basically call that 50%, right? 4 millimeter, 40%. You get down to about 3, you ain't got much time, depending on how much you're braking and how far you're traveling and how much stopping you're planning on doing, okay? If you're just doing a couple local in towns, I've seen some older couples that come in that maybe take their car all of 100 miles per year, and they can ride out 3 millimeter down to 2 millimeter in about a year or two. So it takes them a lot of traveling. So again, depends on what kind of driver you are. All right, let's go back on over to the rotor, make sure we're all cleaned up, and if not, we'll cut it again, and then I'll show you guys how to do a non-directional finish on the brake lathe. One rotor down. And we are clear. So at this point, I'm gonna back the blades off. I'm gonna undo our silencer, and that's to prevent chatter while it's on the machine. So that way you don't get a record effect where it starts squealing. You don't want it to go, wee. You don't want that. Okay, this part is something that I learned when I first started doing brakes over at Sears Auto Center, and I've been doing it ever since. I've only seen a couple of other people use this method after seeing me do it. Everyone else would take a little piece of emery cloth or light grit sandpaper and would just scratch back and forth all the way around in a non-directional finish. You do not want it, when we cut, okay, this thing is cutting like a record. That's why you hear it's, when I'm talking about singing like a record, okay, it's being cut in a circular motion, getting wider and wider and wider. You don't want that on the car and then the pads, or it's gonna start squealing while you're driving. So how you get rid of that is you can go back and forth, side to side, whatever you want to do, so long as it doesn't spiral all the way out. So the way I learned how to do this is I take this and I'll start from the inside or outside, doesn't matter, and I just kind of go back and forth a couple times. We're not trying to machine the rotor, we just want to scratch the surface. I'm going to do it both on the inner and the outside. Okay, so here's our non-directional finish. Looks pretty, right? Pretty good. We got one more to cut. All right, so we got one rotor on the car already. Mounted up, mounting bolts tight. Now we're gonna go ahead and scuff the pads while we're waiting for our other rotor to finish cutting over there. So the pads aren't in too bad a shape, okay? There's plenty of pad life on here. You might notice a few little chunkies in the middle. I just fold this little piece of emery cloth in the middle like so, and kind of give it a little swipe, okay? You can take it, you can also kind of swipe at an angle, so that way there's no sharp edges. You can clear off the little bit that's on the outside like so. Now these brake pads formed memory to the old rotor, and the old rotor was warped. So you don't want to just leave them like that, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of go over the surface of this brake pad using this piece of emery cloth, and we want to take all that shine out. We want it to turn into a dull semi-metallic brake pad again. And we just want to take off all that edge, all that shine that's on there. You want to take off all that. Try to bring back the pad. And what we're doing here, also trying to create that non-directional finish as well. This includes the brake pads, right? Because they formulate memory. Again, we're scuffing all that shine off. If we see some gashes in here, we're going to spend a little bit more time and action on that spot. You might have to use a couple of pieces of emery cloth to do so. You flip it over, same thing to the other end. I have seen people use the die grinder with this as well, and a little bit of sandpaper. And so long as you're not spending a whole bunch of time with that wheel in one spot, you should be fine to do it that way too. I'm just showing you an at-home method, if you will, or an on-the-fly method. So if you have emery cloth, this is just the way, again, something that I've always done. I'm not going to say that I've never used the die grinder method before. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, okay? So there's our pad. All the shine's gone. There's no more rough edge. We know that's the caliper one. I had to use a flashlight, but got some brand new Hercules tires. Here's the date code, 2620. Let's take a look at that tread pattern, huh? It's gonna be a nice street tire. All right, guys, so now you've seen clips throughout the entire week and all the overtime that I've been pulling here at the shop, trying to get this car prim and proper. I hope you guys enjoyed the content as we've been doing it. At this point though, I think we're pretty much done. This car still needs some work, right? It still needs the mounts, power steering pump, and I would also recommend struts and those lower ball joints and maybe even the sway bar links. Other than that, the thing drives straight, okay? Only clunking that we're getting is coming from the strut tower mounts, possibly even just the strut just in there bouncing around, right? So since the car is no longer gonna go to my daughter, I'm pretty much at a stopping point myself of what I'm willing to pay for. Because I'm going to be giving it away to my sister-in-law for free to include all the repairs that I've done so far. So far, we probably have about $1,300 invested into a free car. But this thing now runs solid, shifts smooth, has less than 100,000 miles on it. She's got fresh tires. We're doing the brakes for her. We did the transmission service, the oil change. We're going to throw some wiper blades on here at the end of the day. Refrigerant's top, it's full, no leaks, right? New drive belt. This car is good to go. It's road worthy in my opinion, okay? Yes, it would be wildly beneficial to have the mounts replaced sometime soon, but you can drive on a bad mount for a little bit. With what little driving that she's gonna be doing, she just needs to get to and from her house to work and then hopefully find a better job. But in that time frame, it gives her time to save up money to buy the power steering pump, the struts, the mounts, etc. So now it's all on her. I'll do the work for free, so when she comes down next time and she can afford to, whatever she decides that she wants to go with first, we'll go ahead and we'll pull it into the shop on a weekend and we'll just take care of it. Because in this family, we're all about taking care of each other. That's all I got for this video, guys. Look, thanks as always for watching. I know this car was supposed to go to my daughter. We're just going to try to find her something else. But at least we were able to help out at least one family member that was in dire need of a car. And I'm glad I was having the ability to be able to do that. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed the content. Cheers to those of you that have your beers. We'll see you next video. Deuces.